Good morning, everyone. I'm Aggie with Artist Heart Studio. Sometimes in person I have to say I'm Aggie because people think my name is Maggie. Actually, sometimes I wish my name was Maggie. No, I like my name now that I'm older. When I was little, I didn't like my name at all. But I'm digressing already. Good morning. Hi, Lisa. How are you? So I'm going to dive right in. I want to talk about a bunch of things. Let me just start with this. If you are if you teach at all, you might want to go get yourself one of these. I got to turn the camera around again. Hello. Okay. You might want to go get yourself these. These come in a pack, and they're Jack Richardson, and they sell these. It might even be on Amazon, but take a screenshot of this. These are really, really an awesome tool. It's a nice card. Here's what's on the back. This is such a great tool to have, especially if you're an instructor. And if it weren't so big, I would just go ahead and send it to all you guys that are in the painter's journey. I probably should do that at some point. I probably should just send these with some other stuff. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about color. We're going to talk about a little bit about some tips for starting a painting, things for beginner painters. Yes, last night I was so exhausted. I didn't even wash my makeup off. I'm being very transparent with you right now. maybe it's TMI. I was so tired yesterday. I went to bed and I didn't even wash my face. That's really terrible. Oh. Anyway, so yeah, here I am with the smeared makeup face. But hey, you can relate, right? Have you ever done that? I'm sure you have. So here's what I'm going to do today. I want to talk about Marsha's gorgeous polar bear. Good morning, Joanne. And also it's funny because Trish was talking last night about a class that she's doing at her with her seniors. I believe it's seniors at her church that she's doing painting classes, which I think is so awesome. And she had a guy last night that said, how do I know what color to use? And that's the number one thing when you're with beginner painters. And I know you guys aren't all teachers or anything like that, but I'm sure you can understand. I mean, I get it. We're afraid of mixing color. We don't know how, or we're just not sure. And then we also don't know how to draw, so we're like preoccupied with that the whole time. And so, we have to kind of get over that fear. So anyway, I'm going to give you at least a tip today about the color portion of it. And like I say, if you familiarize people, yourself or your people that you're teaching with the colors, and I wouldn't go into a 12 color wheel like this. I would keep it really simple the first time you're introducing someone to color theory, and just talk about just talk about the primaries. All you need to think about is cool red, warm red, cool yellow, warm yellow, cool blue, warm blue. I mean, it's, basic, and black and white, okay? It's also a lot easier to use a brown or a gray that's already pre-mixed, okay? You could have a bottle of craft paint, either a burnt sienna or a raw umber, and then you can have a bottle of like a medium gray. It's always really, really helpful to have that pre-mixed, because as an instructor, I can tell you, I've taught thousands of people in person, it takes way too long to explain how to mix brown, takes way too long to explain how to mix gray. I mean, if you're at an in-person paint party, if it's an online course and you've got more time to explain, then that's a different story. But so I'm just saying, and for convenience sake, if you're a student and you just want to get a painting done, then have your convenience bottles that are already pre-mixed. Nothing wrong with that. All right, so yeah, you just want to start with the primaries. a warm and a cool of each. Now, some people may not even understand what do we mean when we're talking about that. So you could, and again, you're going to need 10 minutes to have them do this, but it's a good way to get people more comfortable with paints because they don't even know how to hold the brush. Maybe they have no idea. They don't know what you're talking about. So you could just have them mix up a color wheel really quickly, you know. So I'm going to turn my camera down and just, you know, really quickly show you what I'm talking about. And I know this might seem kind of rudimentary for some of you guys, but hey, never hurts to review, right? So we're just going to do, and you know, it's convenient that I've got my paint box here. And there's lots of different ways to do it. A color wheel. You know, look how they got this one. I'm just going to draw a circle. You know, just draw a little circle. Got my brush, my mama brush all wet. And so, I don't even know how these are going to fit on here yet. Cool yellow. I'm going to put warm yellow next to it. Cool red and warm red. So I'd put the warm red first. Then I'd put the cool red, which I'm using, you know, quinacridone. I'm probably not going around the wheel. This may not space out properly. Cool blue. Oops, I dipped in the wrong one. Warm blue is phthalo. And that, honestly, I tell you, every once in a while, that still confuses me, the blues. But phthalo is the cool one. Ultramarine is the warm one. Okay, and then I'm going to put my warm green, which I guess is kind of this. And my cool green would be next to my cool yellow. All right, so that's kind of it. So we got, you know, cool and warm, warm, cool, cool, warm, warm, cool. Just we're putting them next to each other. So if you want to know what those colors are, very often the cool yellow is called, it might be called Hansa or Cad Yellow Light. Right? Cool yellow is Cad Yellow Light. The warm yellow is Cad Yellow Deep. The warm red is Cad Red Light or Medium. The cool red could be alizarin crimson or quinacridone magenta or just magenta. The cool blue is phthalo. Or I suppose you could use cobalt, but phthalo is better. The warm is ultramarine. The warm green is permanent green light. And the cool green is phthalo. So that's just a very, you know, I mean, these are common paint colors. It's a very basic color wheel. The three primaries, warm and cool. And this is a great way to open up any class if you're teaching or if you're a beginner painter and you want to get a basic understanding of the color wheel and what those paint colors are named. Here's a good place to start. Now the problem is there's all kinds of custom mixes that paint companies have devised to sell you more products. which you don't need. Frankly and honestly, sincerely, listen to what I'm saying. You do not need to buy all those tubes of paint. In fact, you shouldn't. You should, if you really want to learn color, you really want to learn how to mix color, you should just buy these and learn how to do it. And the way we do that, and we do that in the painter's journey, we take these colors and we do color swatches. I don't have my notebook here to show you, but we actually mix these up, swatch them out, and have them for reference later. This is what all artists do. Do you guys maybe give me a thumbs up if you did not know that? Give me a thumbs up, comment below if you did not know that. I'm just curious. All right, so now case in point, we're gonna talk about Marsha's polar bear. And I love her polar bear, but I've got a jump start for you, which kind of gets half your work done, and it's called putting down a ground on the canvas. It's called, you know, covering the canvas with an undertone of a solid color, okay? And that, I think, Marsha, I don't believe you did that on yours. I couldn't tell for sure. But what you want to do is you want to look at your reference and squint at it, and what is the main color that you see behind the highlights? What do you see deep inside there? And I'm squinting. My eyes are almost completely closed, and I'm squinting and looking at this, and it is a warm yellow. So I'm going to look on my little color wheel here. What color is the closest to that? You know, it's not on here. These are saturated colors. This is not this is a you know, a toned down color, which that's the reality of the world. We see billions of colors with our eyes, and usually they are very desaturated. So we talk about that in the painter's journey also, how to desaturate a color. There are 5 different ways to desaturate a color, but you can kind of tell what this is, right, guys? When you're looking at this, you know it's not green, it's not blue, not reds. You know it's a yellow. And so now, is it the warm yellow or yellow? If you're not sure, okay, what you would do is mix a swatch and put it down on a piece of paper, and then compare that swatch to your sample. So you always want to have a reference, and you always want to just test your color out. So case in point, Trish with that guy she had last night, he said, well, are you going to tell me what colors to use? Well, no, I don't want to tell you what colors to use. That's your interpretation. By the way, color perception is very personal. It's what makes you unique, the way you perceive color. So who am I to tell you what color to use? You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to steal that joy from you. I want you to discover that for yourself. But anyway, what you would do is you'd go, okay, well, I think it's warm yellow, and I know it's desaturated. I got my gray here, so let me just try that out. What if I mix gray with warm yellow and see if that, you know, is going to come close to that color? That's all. I mean, it doesn't take long, you know, to try and figure out what that color is. And actually, I find it really a lot of fun. I find it to be a lot of fun. Okay, so no thumbs up. So you guys all know this stuff already. Is that what you're telling me? All right, anytime I'm mixing a color and I know there's white in it, I always get the white first. Okay. And then I'm gonna I know it's warm yellow. Now I got 2 warm yellows that I use. Why? Because I know that this warm yellow, which is raw sienna, is the most common thing that you see in nature. You see this a lot in animal fur, and you see this a lot in a landscape. When you're looking at the world, you see this color all over the place. So why not just use this color? It's called raw sienna. It is a warm yellow. I didn't put that on the color chart because I was trying to keep this, I was trying to keep this simple and just have, you know, this is our simple basic color wheel. But we know that raw sienna would fall in over here. So that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to start with my raw sienna. Now let's say you don't have raw sienna, because Agnes, you just told me to use these colors. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get our this color right here, our warm yellow, and mix that together. But I am gonna add my gray. Okay, a little bit of gray, a little bit of warm yellow, a little bit of white, and it comes kind of close. But I look at that and I'm like, oh no, it's still too cool. It doesn't look like that. What I do is I hold this up against my reference, and it doesn't look like that yet. Well, first of all, it's a little darker, so let's add a little bit more gray. I think I have green in my brush. That's the problem. My brush wasn't clean enough. So that's another thing. If you've got a dirty brush, what happens is sometimes it'll go up into the ferrule. This ferrule acts like a cup, and it can hold water in it. It gets sucked up in there, and then when you go and turn it downward again, it just spills out and ruins things for you. And that's a little bit why that looks a little bit on the cool side. And also, white itself is a cool color. So let's try it again. I cleaned out my brush a little bit more. I got my cad yellow, deep, and white. And now I'm gonna add some gray. Now that's what kind of makes it go a little bit green. Oh, and I still got green coming out of my brush. Golly. Let's get another brush. And my paint water is green also. Let's try it again. Oh my goodness, what a morning. Hello. It would be much easier for me to use the raw sienna, but we're pretending you don't have that. You know, and this is the struggle bus, you know, why people are like, I don't know how to mix color. So one thing you want to tell people is to mix a small amount at a time. Just add a little bit at a time, and you want to forewarn them that anything phthalo is very powerful. You need a really, really only tiny, tiny bit. So that looks a little bit better than those other ones. I could even put this right on my reference and see, and it doesn't match it. It's off. It needs to be more muted, and it needs to be warmer. So that would be where I would add a warm color. Let's say you only have these primaries. I would have to add my warmest color is going to be my red. So I'm going to do a tiny, tiny bit. And now it looks like a peach color. Looks a little bit peachy. Let's see if this is a little bit better. It looks a little bit better, but it's still, actually, that might not be the worst thing in the world to use that peachy color, but we want it to be, yeah, no problem, Marsha. I know you got to go to work. We want it to be a little more yellow, so I could make it cool. It needs to be a little cooler, so now I could add my cool yellow. Let's see what happens if I do that. So when you're looking at your colors in terms of warm versus cool, that helps. Remember, white also lightens, but it also cools. So I'm going to add some more white. Let's see how that looks now. I'm getting a lot closer now. So, I mean, and honestly, that might be about the closest I can get, unless you have brown. If you have burnt sienna, so it's a good idea to have a couple of earth colors in your palette. It just gets your color mixing done a lot faster. And when I say earth colors, I mean burnt sienna, raw sienna, anything that has sienna in it or umber in it. Those are pigments from the earth, you know, things that we see in the world. They literally mine them out of the ground and out of things, you know, on the planet here. So, so that's a lot closer. That's probably a good enough color to use as my undertone for this canvas, to tell you the truth. I think this would work pretty decent. It's not perfect, so I'm going to put some of that down, right? And then let's go ahead and use the shortcut colors. let's say, you know, you do have a burnt sienna or a raw sienna. Now we're going to get there a lot faster. So we're going to use, so we're not, let's say we have more than just these colors. We've got raw sienna. Now where this would go on this color wheel is in here, closer to the center. If we mix these two together, these two cool colors, we get a grayed down version, a muted version. And that's one way of desaturating a color, is by mixing it with its complement. The complement is what is opposite on the color wheel. And when you put these two colors side by side together, they look fabulous together. They show each other off. But when you mix them together, they become a really muted color, okay, which could be good or bad. Some people will say that it's poopy, but actually we shouldn't think of it negatively, because those colors, grays are beautiful. Muted colors are beautiful. And we learn the strategy of placing muted colors next to saturated colors to manipulate the viewer to look at the parts we want them to look at. That's the beauty of being an artist, is you get to decide that. So okay, let's mix this up. I'm going to start with white, and then I'm going to get my raw sienna. Right? That was probably too much raw sienna. And you know, even when I look at this raw sienna, that actually looks just slightly peachy compared to this, right? So I could cool it off a little bit. Now I can cool it off by adding blue, but we all know what happens when we add blue to a yellow. It goes green, and we don't want a green polar bear. White will cool it off, so that's going to help, right? If I put some of this down, that's not bad. Put that on the polar bear here. It's not bad, but it's not really, I'm not really matching it yet. When I put this on there, what I see is that this looks grayer. It looks more gray than that. So that in and of itself is such a huge tip right there. As an artist, as a color mixer, what you are doing is you're comparing. You're starting with some sort of a reference point, and you're comparing A to B. That's all you're doing. You don't need to have talent. You just need to have the ability to discern. Okay? That's all it is. You're just comparing. Anybody knows how to compare. Anybody can do this. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit more gray. Oh, that was a lot of gray. And maybe a little bit more white. And now I think I'm getting there. I think I am getting there. Okay, here's this color. Maybe that's going to be my ground color. Now the other thing you could do, let's talk about the complements like I just mentioned a second ago. The complementary colors on the color wheel. So the opposite color of yellow is purple. Now we don't have a straight up purple on here, but we've got ultramarine blue. And I can tell you that when you mix white with ultramarine blue, it looks periwinkle, which is a purple. So what if we were to use the complementary color with this mixture? Let's see what happens with that. Now I do have deoxazine purple in my palette, and I don't really know offhand what that's going to look like if I mix that together. So I'm going to start out small. I'm going to start another pile. I'm going to go white, raw sienna, and I'm going to put some deoxazine purple in here. Is my music too loud? think it is. So here's that. Look how cool that looks. It's a very pretty color. It's just a little too vivid, but it is muted. Not quite. It's not quite right on, right? Needs to be a little bit cooler. So I think I would add just a little more gray to this. Oh, that's way too much. And I think we got it. And again, all we're doing here, we're making a background color or tone. So actually this looks greener now. So I mean, I could add a little bit of blue to make it that color. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do ultramarine blue. So let me start again with what I think this is. All right, so we know we got white. We know we got raw sienna. We know we got some deoxazine purple. And then we know it's just a little bit cooler. Add a little more yellow. So mixing neutrals, it's you know, it's a neutral-ish yellow. And I'm going to add, what happens if I add some ultramarine blue to this? Tiny bit. Tiny bit of ultramarine blue. That's it. Tiny bit of ultramarine blue. So the reasoning that I used was I saw that what I made looked too warm and that I needed to make it greener. And I think this color would work really, really well. Here's what it looks like. As my base color for this polar bear. Okay. And there are subtle shifts in there, but actually that's fine. So that's what I would do. That's what I would start with. I would start with a base layer of color on there. And then I am able to draw this on with, I would use chalk. And, you know, again, if you're teaching people this, you're going to want to let them try this out. With chalk, it's the nice thing about chalk is if you don't like the line, you can erase it. So let me use a blow dryer on this. Okay, it dried and it looks pretty, it still looks pretty warm next to that. So let's go a little bit cooler here. Let's go a little bit cooler. I'm gonna open up my paints again. And that's the thing too, with acrylic paints, they can dry a little bit differently. I've got this cool green here. but he's not really green. But what if I layered this on top of that? This was that color I started with. This looks a little bit more like it, huh? So that's the thing about acrylic paint too. It can dry a little bit darker. And your color doesn't have to be right on, you know, your ground color. Sometimes, in fact, I'll use a complementary color. That looks a lot better. So, I mean, I think that's a decent color. I think that's usable, yeah. So, I mean, you know, I'm not embarrassed that you're seeing that I didn't nail it the first time. This is what you're gonna go through. You know, I want you to see that sometimes it just takes, you know, you just gotta play around with mixing the colors and trying them out and comparing it to your reference, you know. The thing is, you're gonna learn so much by doing this. So, okay, now we can draw this on here. So I'm just gonna grab my chalk. Where did it just go? Here it is. And I mean, I don't know that I'm gonna paint this whole bear, but we'll see. It's already taken me so long just to mix the dang color. All right, so I want to center him, kind of center him, right? Got this nose. Just look for the overall shape. Here's a rectangle. Let's center that rectangle in here. Then it's a circle representing his whole head. Then he's got these ears. These ears are so important. That's how we know it's a bear. And then his back is up here. Okay, and then he's got these little eyes at the top of this rectangle right here. Right? That's how you know, that's how you know it is a bear. And then here is this big old nose. Right? So I kind of roughed it in, and now I'm just going to double check a couple things. Again, I'm comparing. I'm going to take something to start with, A, and compare it to B. So what do I mean by that? Maybe how long is his nose compared to how wide is his forehead? Okay, A versus B. So, you know, over here, if I do this over here, his nose is this long, right? Compared to his face is twice as wide as the length of his nose. So all it is finding something to compare. Same thing we did with the color. So all I'm gonna do is double check. Well, I made his nose this long. Did I make his face twice as wide? Yeah, I did. So that would be the first thing, right? Length versus width. Got that. Now what about the height? This length versus this. Well, I think so. I think these are just about equal. The length of his nose, and then the length of his forehead. Okay, let's see if I did that over here. This versus this. I think I'm a little bit off with the top of his head. So there we go. We'll just make this a little bit taller. So this is like the beginning of drawing skills, which you may not have ever been shown this. You know, comment below if you have never been shown this, or do you already know this, you guys? Am I talking about stuff you already know? And you're thinking, geez, girl, tell me something I don't know. Okay, so I know that my overall structure is accurate. The big picture is pretty accurate. Okay? And then, I keep losing my chalk. Now, once you got the big parts working, you can go check smaller details like where things line up. So, what lines up with what? What can I check out here? Well, let's see. Sometimes you can draw a grid on your reference to see what lines up with what. But let's just do a real simple thing. His eyes, okay? What do his eyes line up with? Well, they don't line up with the ears. The ears, the bottom of the ears are just above the top of the eyes. So let's see if I did that on mine. Yep, looks like I did. The eyes, the top of the eyes are below the bottom of the ears. So that's good. What else lines up with what? His nose. What about looking at it this way? The right side of his eye lines up with this side of his nose. Do I have that going on? Well, you know what? I could move that eye over a little bit, actually. I tend to make things wide-eyed. So let's just move that over a teensy bit. The eyes are a little closer in. And let's look at the placement of the eyes. How wide is this compared to this, right? So I'm a little bit off on that, I think. So that tells me I probably need to make the nose a little bit wider. So maybe I had the eye placed right, I just needed to make the nose wider. Because I'm looking at the unit over here too. That's less than the middle. So let's just make the nose a little bit wider. Because this amount of space is bigger than this amount of space. Thanks, Christine. I'm glad this is good info for you. Okay, what else? What else can we see? What other little points do we notice about things lining up with other things, just to make sure our drawing is accurate, you know? And that's why a lot of times people will have you draw a grid, you know? Draw a grid right on here, put a grid on here, and just make sure things are all lining up. All right, so I think that's pretty decent. This is a decent enough start in my mind to go ahead and start painting. I don't know that I want to have his back like that. Well, I guess I do. And so from here, from this point, I would start painting. And what I do is I put the darks in first. So, and I like to start with the eyes. So I'm going to put some dark in the eyes. And since we know we started with, we know the colors we have used so far, I'm going to continue. Bottom of face is below nose. Okay, let's see. Bottom of face is below nose. Yes, so there is a little bit more face down there. Is that what you're saying? Maybe I don't have enough face down here. There is just a little bit more down here. Yeah. Yeah, it comes out just a little bit more than what I had. I think that's what you're saying. Okay, so now I'm going to use the colors that I used in this base layer is what I'm going to continue using. I'm not going to introduce a different color at this point because then I'm going to ruin my harmony. And, you know, that's what's going to make your painting work. You use your colors consistently. You would only introduce a new color when you want to bring an accent. And even if you do bring in another color, you're going to incorporate the previously used colors into that new color. So in other words, they call it a mother color. Seriously, it's a mother color. So maybe in this painting, my mother color would be the raw sienna. I want to make sure I have a little bit of raw sienna in all the colors that I use on this painting. That's going to automatically give harmony. Because when I look at this, I see raw sienna in everything, even in the sky, believe it or not. Let's do that first. You can actually put a little bit of that raw sienna even in your sky. Now, usually I paint the sky in last, but I'm gonna put it in now just for the hell of it. So I'm gonna use white, tiniest bit of phthalo blue. Of course, that was way too much. Okay, and then I'm gonna take the tiniest bit of my previous color, right here, let's say it's this, and mix that in there. I mean, it's a very small amount, but it's in there. And that's what I'm gonna use for the sky. So automatically, I've done myself a favor. I've made the sky muted, right? Why do I wanna mute the sky? Because this painting is not about the sky. This painting is about my polar bear. I want the polar bear to stand out. I don't want a bright blue sky. That would just kind of command too much attention. Anytime you use a really saturated color, it just commands attention. You know, we love color. So right away, I mean, very little effort, this is harmonious. It feels good, it goes together. And I mean, how easy was that? I just mixed my previous color in with the new color. So there's that, okay. Now, I can even use this color with more white, okay, more white, and maybe that'll be the highlight part of my bear. Oops, dropped my brush. Wow, my music's a little loud. And maybe that's what I put up here, okay. Oh, I need to turn my music down. I didn't realize it was that loud. So maybe that's the color I put up here. Because this is a cooler white. I want cool white and warm white. So I'm laying this in, and you might want to even, you know, you could scratch through that, put texture in that. But this is going to help me build, you know, layers of different colors. Same thing over here. And right away, I'm separating areas, cool areas from warm areas. This is helping me, you know, show the form of this bear. All of this is a little lighter. And sometimes all you have to do is like squint. Now usually I work dark to light, but I was dying to jump in and show you how you could use that color mix for your light area. All right, so there's that, right? Now let's switch over and start doing some dark areas. And so for my dark now, a lot of painters don't use black, but I don't know, I'm gonna use black. I'm gonna add some black in, but black is very cold. So again, this needs the mother color because it just looks too different from everything else going on in the painting. So it's a black, but I just grayed it down quite a bit and used my mother color. So maybe that's gonna be my dark inside the ear. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe I'm going to use this for the eyes. Maybe I'll use this on the nose. It may not be dark enough, it may not be cool enough, but I'm just trying it out. I'm seeing how it harmonizes with what I have on here already is what really matters. These colors all have to work together, you know, in this environment. That's what matters. So, okay. Starting to see things. Obviously this is blacker, so I'm going to use some black and some gray, right? Now I have burnt sienna on my palette, and I'm going to use burnt sienna because I see burnt sienna in his nose. And I'm going to put some of that on there. I'm going to put some of that in here, some of that in the eye. Okay, and then I would basically use different values of this to keep on building the layers of this animal. So the thing about fur is that when their skin is usually dark. So it's almost like you need that darker color behind there. And then you add lighter colors on top. I didn't go as dark as what you see there, but I could add that in now. At least where the nose, where it splits open and you see it more, I could do that there. And actually I'm looking at this. Oh, how did I get green on here? I'm looking at this and I actually see a little bit of green in his ear. Oops, water dripped out of my brush. You know, I mean, I could use variations of this throughout this whole thing. I could keep on using these colors, adding different tints to them, adding white, adding blue, adding green, whatever it is I see, and just keep using those to keep building areas. So what you do is you squint, look for big color areas. You see where it's dark, and you just, basically this is blocking in. Down here, it's warmer and greener and darker. So let's get this down here. And this is the weird stage where you just have to kind of trust the process. You need that dark behind there. You know, and you might have to just play around a little bit to figure out what the color is. But you know it when you see it. And what happens when you're doing this is you learn to trust your eyes. You learn that you can try things out and you can figure it out. You don't need someone to tell you, you know, what color to use. If you want to be an artist, you have to build these skills, you know, on figuring out how to, you know, how to mix a color. I hope that doesn't sound discouraging or harsh. So anyway, that is the beginning stages of what you would do. I'm not getting much feedback from you guys today. You guys still there? I know, probably everybody's heading off to work and stuff. But anyway, that's what I wanted to share today with you guys. You know, how using a ground color, a base color, it just gets you there so much quicker. Look for the common color that you see in there. Like when I did this barn painting yesterday, did I use pink as an undertone? Forgetting now. Let's see what I did. So when I did this one yesterday, yeah, I started with a base layer in the barn area. You know, look for what the main color is that you see. Spend a little bit of time mixing that color. Come close to it. It's a cool grade red. So, you know, I used my magenta because that's my cool red. I added gray, and that's what I started with. You know, that's what I painted the whole barn area with as a start. You know, and it got me there so much quicker. So anyway, that's it, you guys. Learn to squint and look at the main color that you see. Get your paints out and mix up that color. Or if you don't have the time to do that and you've got the craft paints, just grab your craft paints and see what color matches that overall tone and value that you see. That's it, you guys. Let me know below what you thought of this, and I will talk to you later. Bye.